usually is.
Brown drives, layup on the ground.
That's not the first time we've seen a superstar in green and white sacrifice his body.
Scoring net, knocked away.
Welcome into another episode of First to the Floor. Ben Vallis here. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. The draft is in 2 days, and there's plenty of Celtics-related rumors flying around. We're going to get into all of that, plus some news, including a new coaching hire, and we'll touch on some of our favorite prospects available at around the 35th spot. Alongside me, as he often is, it's Wayne Spoony. Spoons, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Ben. The draft is maybe one of my favorite days of the year, dude. Like, from the goofiness of the big suits in the early 2000s to, like, what was it? Jan Vesley kissing like his supermodel girlfriend, like trades, everything. It's just the best, dude. I can't wait. I absolutely love it. And looking at prospects, like, they could be anything. They could be a star. It could be Yugon Bagarin.
Oh, please. And a great way to clear out the cobwebs as well, as far as, mourning the way that the season ended for the Celtics there. And of course, we've got the man with the mistress, Jake Eisenberg. Jake, what's going on, man? Welcome back.
Thanks, man. I've just been trying to find the Mistress 2.0 over the last week. So hopefully we found him. Just a taller, thicker version.
You'd probably get away with a 2-3-star hotel, maybe a cheap Airbnb with the new young mistress. I'm going to leave that analogy alone before I get into trouble. Now, look, we will be live streaming the draft on YouTube in a couple of days' time. Notable to say, YouTube, not playback, while playback sort of work out their broadcasting rights. Apparently, everything is going to be fine. They're heading into the season. But for now, I don't think they have the draft. So we're going with YouTube. We're going to have some cool overlays there, like a live tweet deck overlay with all the news breakers. We're going to have a dynamically updated draft board. We're going to have a snippet of the broadcast there, just enough so that we don't get banned by YouTube. So keep an eye on our YouTube feed there for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's just get right into it here. Let's start with a quick reaction to the Bradley Beal trade. I do have a tweet overlay here somewhere. Jake, here we go. Shams. Washington Wizards trading three-time All-Star Bradley Beal to the Phoenix Suns for Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, a handful of second-round picks, and multiple pick swaps. Jake, I feel like I want to start with you because you were sort of, I don't want to say neurotic, but like maybe worried about like where Beal would go and maybe the Miami Heat. Obviously, that hasn't happened. But as far as how this trade impacts the Celtics, where's your head at there?
I was concerned. We've dodged bullet number 1, which is Beal to the Heat. Bullet number 2 is Dame to the Heat. Like, you have to respect at this point, like, what the Heat have been able to done over the past 2 years with the level of talent on that roster. Like, even last year when they were the 1 seed, it still did not make a lot of sense to me how they were the 1 seed, how they took us to 7 games. And then they did it again with losing PJ Tucker, Tyler Hero out. So if they were to get someone like Beal, or like, it actually makes me, like, any other team, like the Suns, like if the Sixers would have gotten Beal, I actually would have been less concerned. Maybe the Bucks would have concerned me, but just like that's exactly what the Heat are missing, is someone to take the load off Jimmy that can score, put him in that zone, hide the defensive liabilities. So we dodge it. Now we just need Dame to stay. So we need the Raptors to trade Siakam to the Blazers or Zion. That might be the best option. Zion to the Blazers. And then the Heat can remain where they are, and the black magic will eventually run out. But I think it was interesting for me, like, how the situation progressed and what we learned about the overall deal in context to Jalen. Because I think all of this is like, what is Jalen's value going to be if he does sign the Supermax? Are we going to be able to get out of it in 2 or 3 years? It seemed pretty clear that there were a lot of teams that were inquiring about Beal, but the no trade clause, like, this may have been the worst contract ever signed because of the no trade clause. Like, it completely removed all of the leverage for Washington, unless they were willing to be like, no, we're keeping you then. If you're not willing to waive the trade clause, so we can get at least a first round pick or second round pick, then we're going to keep you. They clearly weren't willing to do that. This was a disaster. Like, disaster. And you hear about other teams that were willing to jump in there without the no trade clause. That would have been actually, real value would have come back for the Wizards. And then you contrast that against Jalen, younger. He's going to be, he's look, Jalen has his warts, but he's proven he can contribute on a top 4 team in the league for his whole career, pretty much. Versus Bradley Beal can't get past Kelly Olynyk. So those are the differences between those two players. So I feel much better about at least being able to get positive value back if Jalen signs a Supermax.
Yeah. I feel like, did Beal just not want to go to the Heat? Because it seemed like to me Lowry's on a massive expiring contract. I guess Chris Paul is too. And I heard there was at least 1 first-round pick in that Miami deal. So Beal must have just really, really wanted to go to Phoenix. And I guess it goes back to what you were just saying, Jake. That's like the cautionary tale of the no trade clause. He's the only guy in the NBA with a no trade clause. Like, what are you doing, Washington?
What
are you thinking? It doesn't make any sense. I mean, I think Jalen won. Beal is already like about to turn 30. So he's kind of older. He's been around for a long time. I mean, Jalen will be pretty deep into his contract by the time he's 30. Mitch says that Beal's wife lives on the West Coast and he thinks that's a factor. That's why you don't give the no trade clause, because you can't predict crazy stuff like that happening 2 years down the line after he signs that contract. So, I get why the Wizards did it. Like, they're clearly about to tear it all down to like the complete parts. I mean, maybe we should be trying to poke some of their sort of veteran role players away for extra treat if they're really trying to get rid of everything. Like, I wouldn't hate Monte Morris or something like that, right?
Yeah, but, Denny Avdija, big fan.
Oh, I love Denny. I absolutely love Denny, dude.
Yeah.
Big wing that can defend. Give me Denny. But so it's just a bizarre situation. I think it's unlike, Beal's made all NBA teams. This has got to be the lowest value for an all NBA player that's under 30. That's not like Steph Marbury or something like that. That's not like a total head case. So just a bizarre trade. Glad he's going west. We will never have to see him. I feel in the playoffs. I have a hunch.
Yeah, strong hunch. And so we've dodged one bullet as far as Beal not going to Miami. There is another bullet that we're sort of looking at slowly come at us, Neo in the Matrix style, which is potentially Damian Lillard, who apparently wants to return to the Blazers, but there are a lot of rumors swirling about, and that one in particular, that he might go to the Miami Heat. I'm just saying that to say it, that it's a thing that we need to be aware of. There's nothing we can do about it, obviously. I'm loving the reports that we're seeing that Lillard wants to remain in Portland. It seems like he's very much leaving it up to the Blazers to make that call themselves. They haven't necessarily proven a lot in the past that they can act particularly decisively when it comes to what to do with Lillard. Like, they've never really seemed to go on all in either direction. But suffice to say, we're just sort of holding our breath and sitting on our hands at the moment while we're waiting for hopefully Lillard not to end up in Miami. As far as the Suns, yes, I don't see them as a threat. Certainly not to the Celtics in any sort of potential finals matchup. Certainly not even to Denver and some other teams in the West as well. So nice to see an all-star shift conferences there and just lighten the load on the Celtics as far as what their matchups look like throughout the course of a regular season.
The East is running low, man, on all-stars. It feels like we're just, we're losing guys. Kevin Durant's back west. Beal's now back west. I don't hate it at all. Kind of like to see it. And this accelerates the plan for Devin Booker to the Boston Celtics trade in 2 to 3 years, because the only way that the Suns get out of like this cap thing could be a disaster. Like the CBA, they've just gone. We don't care. Every conversation we've had about we love Jalen, but the Supermax with the new CBA, that's why we don't want to sign it. They've been like, nah, we're going to have 2 guys on a Supermax and Kevin Durant on a normal max. We're going to hit the second apron. We're going to lock all of our picks for the next 7 years, become the 30th pick overall, despite Kevin Durant being 38, Bradley Beal like not playing and being like a lottery team or a play-in team, but still having the 30th overall pick. Like, it could be one of the worst situations of all time. The only way you get out of that is by trading Devin Booker. And I was thinking about it. Like, if you're the Celtics and you're a team around the league, even if the Celtics haven't won a title by then, they're going to be conference finals, deep in the second round, conference finals. Like, a team like a guy like Devin Booker, a guy like Luka is going to be like, you know, it would be nice just being good all the time. You know, it would be nice playing with a guy like Jason Tatum who just plays all the time, makes all NBA, makes his teammates better, doesn't tweet out cryptic bullshit, just gets W's. So I think this is good.
This may be BS, but I was scrolling Twitter about an hour and a half ago, and I saw the Portland Trailblazers feel confident they can put a competitive package together for Bam Adebayo. So, like, maybe Portland's – no, it's not real, but it would be nice if it were. So I'm going to choose to pretend it is. Just flipping the script like, oh, you want Dame? Actually, we want Bam to pair with Dame. So who knows? Yeah, it's going to get ugly. But, and I mean, they're like one Durant injury away from this being one of the most disastrous trades in a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I was listening to the Greatest of All Talk podcast. Ben Gulliver's a co-host who's been like an OG reporter in Portland for basically like back to the Durant days, where he started this massive blog, and his whole life purpose was to get the Blazers to draft Kevin Durant and not Greg Oden. And he had this groundswell of support. It didn't work. And so but my point is, he's still got roots in Portland, and he was saying he would guess that the Portland just drafts either a Scoot or Brandon Miller, depending who's available. They don't trade Lillard. They wait to the deadline. They try and just prove to Lillard, look, hey, the West is still kind of weird. We could be a 5 seed. We could be a 4 seed still. Make another move. And they're just solid. Some of the young guys get better. Scoots could go right away or something like that. They move Simons as a different type of trade. And then, because like he's got so much time on his contract and doesn't have the no trade clause. So as someone that is a little bit more entrenched in the Portland media, I enjoyed that little nugget as well.
Let's move on to some other more recent Celtics-related news, and that is that Joe Mazzulla, Brad Stevens, and the Celtics have hired former Celtics guard Phill Pressey to the assistant coaching staff, which is awesome news. If you've been watching the Celtics as long as some of us has, you're very familiar with Phill Pressey and his sort of like Pritchard-esque impacts off the bench there. I've got some notes on here on Pressey here. So Pressey started his NBA career with the Celtics as an undrafted guard and spent 2 seasons with the team from 2013 to 2015. He then split time in the 2015-16 season with the Philadelphia 76ers, boo, and the Phoenix Suns before playing in the G League and overseas through 2022. Spoonie, you and I are, I guess, the elder statesman on this pod. Although happy birthday, recent birthday, Jake, transcending into his 30s there. Spoonie, I guess you're going to have clearer memories of Phill Pressey. So I'll throw to you first. Do you have like a top memory from Pressey's playing days with the Celtics to put you on the spot there? And I guess more broadly, how do you feel about this coaching hire?
I seem to recall one game where he had like 14 points and he was hitting a bunch of threes and that everybody was getting really hyped. Didn't he go to college with Celtics legend Jawan Johnson? Weren't they teammates and we got them both the same year? I'm pretty sure. I think they both went to Vandy or Wake together. So I remember that. I am a 2'6" guy, wore the 26. It's the end of my gamer tag on Xbox. Also a short point guard who is maybe a little less talented than his opponents. So I loved Big Phill. But I know absolutely nothing about him as a coach, but I imagine he's probably going to come in and do some skill development stuff. That's where a lot of these guys get their start. I mean, I like adding guys who have played in the NBA, and Pressey played with Marcus Smart, so he really knows his way around the team. Crazy. Yeah, I know, right? So I think it's a good hire, man. Like they're clearly targeting a type of guy, like sort of hard-nosed, hard workers, who have some NBA experience with Cassell and Pressey. So I think it's great, man. Like Pressey was always a positive vibes guy. I was always a pretty big fan. So bring him in. Why not? Apparently we, could read the tea leaves when he was hanging around the practice facility for a little while. Oh, that was E'Twaun Moore. Oh man. All right. Well,
shout out to the blog father, Jeff.
It all blends together back then, man.
Now the 3v3 comp between the coaches and the players. Now the coaches have a guy coming off the bench.
Oh yeah. There
as
we
well.
go.
Another guard. smack banging like in his late prime.
Pressey starts over Joe, definitely.
Yes, no, yeah, Joe's definitely coming off the bench as like the enforcer at this point. Well, maybe now that team actually has a coach, so Joe can coach the 3v3 games before and after practices.
Yeah. It's just fun. And like, I guess more seriously, like it's a great hire because it's another guy with NBA coaching experience and Celtics experience. Like we said, he's played with Marcus Smart. So there's obviously going to be some rapport there. He's familiar with the environment, with the fans, with the pressures that come with playing in Boston. So great hire. And it's just fun. It's fun from a fan perspective to see a familiar face back on the bench in a different context or a different capacity. So that's really good. Moving on to some other news. Adam Himmelsbach of the Globe had a very illuminating article recently, which covered a bunch of things. So that the Twitter headline there is that the Celtics continue to explore trades that would reduce their backcourt logjam and have received multiple inquiries about sign and trade possibilities involving Grant Williams. There were some other notable excerpts, including that the C's are likely to give Jaylen Brown the Supermax, which I think we're all happy to hear at this point, that the Celtics are exploring trades involving Malcolm Brogdon and Peyton Pritchard. And like we said, that Grant Williams is expected to re-sign or potentially be signed and traded. Jake, I'm getting from what you've added to the run sheet here that you might be the one of us to have read this article in full. And so do you want to expand on some of these points there, mate?
Yeah, and I mean, like those are this is what's funny about this time of year. Like there are these long articles, but like really we knew that Jaylen was going to get the Supermax, and we know that they're trying to trade Brogdon and or Pritchard. And I don't know, I feel like we've kind of been on we think that the Celtics are going to re-sign Grant versus I know like Bobby Manning we had on last episode. He thinks that we're going to lose Grant, but like if it's in that 14 to 16 million range, at worst, it seems like it's going to be a sign and trade. What's great is that Grant seems to still have value, and Celtics fans that have held the faith. I know we've been consistent in that. Wasn't the best year for Grant. Inconsistent playing time. Felt like he got away from himself a little bit, but we believe that he will find a pretty consistent role in the NBA as like a 6th, 7th, 8th man as a 3-and-D guy. So I'd be happy to keep Grant, but Brad's on the phones. I think the biggest thing that I'm focused on are Brogdon trades. That seems to be the way to make real changes to the roster. So I went sicko mode. We can touch on anything of those topics if you want to, and then I can go into like all of these Brogdon trades because I feel like that's the most likely and that's going to be the most significant changes to the roster.
Yeah, let's start with the Brogsy trades, and then we can always circle back. Sorry, Spoonie, I'll cut you off.
Oh, never mind. I was just going to touch on Grant real quick, but it's all good.
Go Grant, and then we'll do these.
All right. So, like, because he's a restricted free agent, like it's almost certainly going to be a sign and trade if we lose him, right? Because if Detroit comes knocking and said we're going to pay him $18 million, like you guys aren't going to match it, we can just be like, yes, we will, unless you trade something to us, and then we won't. Then we will match it and trade him to you guys. You can take him into cap space, and we'll take Isaiah Stewart or Alec Burks or something like that. So the restricted rights are just a huge nugget for the team that owns them, man. Like it is not like unrestricted free agency like when we had Gordon Hayward and we were basically like, please don't go, Gordon. Give us a 2nd round pick, Charlotte. Okay, we'll take that. Like it's not like that. It's totally different. We are in the driver's seat. So you got to get some value out of Grant. You cannot just let him walk in free agency, whether it's a sign and trade or keeping him around. I'm down with either.
Yeah, which I love to see. Yeah, and he's got value. So there's young teams, which makes sense. Like Magic, Pistons, guy that can come in and be versatile.
Yep,
and shoot some threes. Yeah.
What's your preference there, guys? Like, would you like to see what we can dangle Grant out there for, and maybe get beef stew or something else back, or are you satisfied enough with Grant, and do you want him back on the team more so, Jake?
Yeah, I would lean trade. I do feel like this team does just need a little bit of change, and I wouldn't change the core stuff. But obviously, I'm not going to just trade him for the sake of it. Like if there's real value coming back, I would definitely do it for Burks or beef stew. But I'm not sure if the Pistons are going to be doing that. I just another wing scorer, just something a little bit different. Get the vibes moving a little bit. But I'm happy to keep Grant.
Yeah, it depends on what the other team wants to sign him for. Like if it's 14, 15 million, I'd rather just keep him as opposed to Burks or I don't know. Stu Beef is really intriguing. Ben and I were talking offline. Like he makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways for this team, but I kind of think Grant might be better than him right now. And Grant can hold up deep into the playoffs. Like Stu Beef has not played an important basketball game in his entire career. So I think it's a little more risky than you think about on sort of first blush, but I probably would end up just rather keeping Grant just because what he can give you deep into the playoffs. And you hope, he comes back healthy, he gets a full off season to add a little bit to his game. He's still so young. Unless somebody goes crazy, 18, $20 million, and you really have no other choice but to do a sign and trade, I'd probably just keep him.
Yeah, 40% 3-point shooting, big dude. As long as the offer's like 14 mil-ish, I want to see Grant stay on the team. Like chemistry guys, obviously he's sort of copped a knock for being like too loud, too vocal at times, but like knows the guys, knows coaching staff, knows the system, knows the fan base. Like he's a guy that we want to keep around. And you could potentially wrangle Isaiah Stewart away from the Pistons without involving Grant Williams in a sign and trade there. Isaiah Stewart's contract is like 5.2 mil going into this year. So we can make it happen in other ways. Jake, hit us with these Brogsy trades.
All right.
I can't believe we're doing this. 6th man of the year. We were so stoked to sign him. And now it's like, how can we get rid of this guy? But that's just like the lay of the land.
It is. Look, Brogdon was awesome. It's really unfortunate that he got injured right at the beginning of the conference finals. But it's become pretty clear that what we really want is Derek White to play more. Because even when Brogdon's playing well, I think the two-way impact of D White is just always going to be better. So how can we shuffle things around? Now, look, I think maybe the best way to do this, you guys hit me with, would you do it? Yes or no? And then do you think the other team would do it? That's probably the way to approach this. All right, we're starting with the Raptors. And I know we want OG Anunoby, but it does not feel like that's going to be possible. We bring in Chris Boucher and Thad Young. We got two kind of 4/5 man. You got a mix of a veteran, stretch big and Boucher. What do you think on, and we save like a little bit of money?
For me, I'll circle back on this if one of the other potentially spicy trade ideas doesn't work. That's me not having seen your other suggestions yet. But to me, like that doesn't really move the needle all that much. What do you think, Spoons?
Yeah, I don't think I'm into that one. I don't really rate Chris Boucher. I don't know. I just don't like his game. He's super thin. So like he gets a lot of blocks, but he's not like a great rim protector. And I just can't watch him shoot threes. I know they go in. Like I just can't. It's like Amir Johnson style threes. So it's just like, that's not going to go in the Eastern Conference Finals. And I think Thad might be washed. He's close, man. He's really close to. He's not yet, but he's really close.
I love Thad Young, though. I feel like
I do too. But man,
great name.
I know.
Yeah,
between him,
godlike name.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would do that either. I think I just wanted to look at the Raptors just because losing Fred VanVleet, most likely, and the OG thing kind of seems like a pipe dream at this point. All right, we've got a 3-teamer here.
Ooh.
We get Bojan Bogdanovic from the Pistons and a 2nd-round pick. The Pistons get Marcus Morris, Robert Covington, and a 2nd-round pick from the Celtics, which we have from the Spurs, which is top 55 protected. And then the Clippers get Malcolm Brogdon because the Clippers, reportedly after Chris Paul, have been searching for a point guard, whether it's Reggie Jackson. I can't. Bojan Bogdanovic would be like a huge get.
I like this. So first of all, from Brogsy to Bogsy, that's huge. That's simple from a nickname perspective. The other thing, and this is where I'm most wary about potentially shipping out Malcolm Brogdon, is like, despite all of these faults, he is a playoff rotation player. And so that Raps trade that you propose, like we're not getting a playoff rotation player back. Bojan can play in the playoffs. He's a ball handler. He can be a playmaker. He's a good spot-up shooter as well. He's got a skill set that contribute as part of a playoff rotation. So for that reason, I like this trade. And I think positionally, he gives us a little bit more diversity as well. So that's a thumbs up for me.
He is like a much better version of Gallo. I think Gallo is probably better in his prime, but like this version of Gallo, he's a better version of it, better ball handler, especially. And like he's not a great defensive player, but he plays hard, dude. Like, I don't think he was playing hard for this crappy Detroit team. Like, I can't imagine how hard he'd play for the Celtics. And we save a little money, cut $2 million off the luxury tax bill. That's like $8 million in savings. So that's not nothing. Get another second in there, which is just another asset you can use if you're going to move Pritchard or something like that. And as far as the other teams, I think the Clippers would absolutely do this in a heartbeat. That's a great trade for them. Detroit, if they are just concerned about clearing cap space for next summer, this makes a ton of sense for them too. They get that, second as a little extra spice, and then they don't have to pay that second $20 million year on Bogey's contract. So I think it makes sense for all three teams. And Bojan's a little older than Malcolm, which isn't ideal, but man, I think he's just a better player, frankly, from a pure winning standpoint.
Bojan's big. Like,
yeah, he's like 6'6", 6'7", right?
Yeah, he's big. Like he can guard up. Like Brogdon was, like his defense isn't bad. If you go back to that Pacers series where the Celtics swept them, like back in Hayward's last hurrah, really. He was really good in that season for the Pacers and that series for the Pacers. I actually think he can contribute on both ends, give you a bit more size. And honestly, it's even if the players are maybe slightly better, slightly worse, it's about shifting the positional balance of the roster. Like we have Smart, Derek, Pritchard, JD Davison, like Yam Madar. Like there's just so many. We don't need. Yeah, look, man, if we can get Aaron Baines back, Jock Landau, he needs to come over to the Seas like as that third big. I've been on that for over a year now.
You have.
Next,
dude.
next, we got a Pelicans trade here. So this is we get Larry Nance trade. Just trying to make the money work. I think we'd have to send a first round pick in order to get Larry Nance here. But I love Larry Nance. Like really versatile defender, small ball 5, he's like he's like an elite version of Grant Williams to me. Like really athletic, not quite the shooter that Grant Williams is, but really versatile, really athletic, hard-nosed. But I think you'd have to give up a first-round pick to do it.
Again, we're not getting a playoff rotation player back. So for me,
Larry Nance is not a rotation player.
I think Larry can play in the playoffs.
Oh, for
I don't know. Hasn't he kind of dropped off a little bit in the last year or two?
Last year.
And he's been a little injury prone as well. So I just think you're getting more potentially out of Malcolm Brogdon. We've seen what he was capable of on the Brogdon retirement / health plan. I don't know if we're getting the same out of Larry Nance Jr. on that same plan. So I'd be a little bit more hesitant to pull the trigger on that one.
I think this works without the first, or maybe like our 35th pick instead of a first. I think the first is maybe a slight overpay, or instead, I don't know if this works contract wise. We replace one of those 2 filler guys for Najee Marshall, who I love, dude. He's like a big wing that can kind of shoot it. Like he plays really hard. I think there's something there with Najee Marshall. So I would, and I don't really, he doesn't play a lot for the Pelicans. He played because they had injury problems, but like, I feel like he's a dude. Like, remember when we plucked Jay Crowder from Dallas and everyone's like, Jay Crowder, like, why do they want this dude? And all of a sudden he's a good starter on our team. Like, I feel like that type of vibe with Najee Marshall. So if we could find a way to steal Najee Marshall, I'd definitely be interested. But maybe slight overpay, but I'm with you, Jake. I love Larry Nance. If he can stay healthy, I think he's in the starting lineup. He just can't. He's had injury problems his whole career, so it's a little risky, but the upside I think is higher than Brogdon.
Yep. All right. Our old friends, the Brooklyn Nets. So this is a try and get Dorian Finney-Smith trade. If you watch the Sixers and the Nets series, Spencer Dinwiddie being their only point guard was a freaking disaster. So, and the Nets can't tank. They don't have their own pick next year. So you send them Brogdon and a second-round pick. And to make the money work, it's Finney-Smith. And boys in the chat, Aussie Phill.
Oh, yeah.
And we're trying to get an Aussie over here. Patty Mills, baby. Bring him home. But yeah, this is a Finney-Smith trade for sure. How can you hate Patty Mills, dude? He's a
what?
Freaking legend.
I love Patty Mills.
Freaking legend. But yeah, this is,
Do you think Patty Mills plays in the playoffs?
First round.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, first round. Yeah, and Dorian Finney-Smith, like great defensive wing there. He shot just under 34% from three last year. So passable wing defender who could probably shoot well enough when left wide open, and those shots are going to be there with both the Jays on court with him as well. This one I'm a little bit more okay with because there's some playoff utilization there from Dorian Finney-Smith, and obviously the Aussie vibes with Patty Mills there as well. I'm going to sign off on this one. Call it in, Brad.
All right.
What do you think, Spoons?
Yeah, DFS is if his shot comes back, I would call this in immediately. I think he just had a down shooting year last year. And he's a much, much better defensive player than Malcolm Brogdon. And that's probably an understatement. So I think he fits in. I worry if his shot isn't back to what it was in his Mavericks days, that you can just kind of ignore him offensively in the playoffs, which scares me because part of like why this Celtics team is so dangerous is you cannot. Matty Pills.
Yes.
Dave D in the chat. That's actually a Spoonerism. So yeah, there you go. I learn something new every day. But I don't know. DFS kind of scares me. But if we're confident, like he just kind of had a down year, it's a weird year. The Mavericks were really strange, and then that Nets team was just kind of thrown together. I'd be for it. Yeah, this one is definitely. Look, it's a 50-50 for me on this one.
Like good enough shooter. Athlete, defender. I think he just like reshuffles the balance in the direction you want. All right. Danny Ainge, it's been too long. Bring him home. Kelly. And then you also get Rudy Gay in here as well. And I know Danny Ainge is not doing a trade unless he gets some kind of draft pick back. I just think Kelly Olynyk brings a level of offensive versatility that we do not have on the roster right now. The handoff game, stretch five for Al. Like he's a really good offensive player. I think he gives you some extra juice that this offense doesn't have and has always been an underrated defender.
Yeah, certainly feels a positional need. Again, bring some playoff utilization. The only reason I maybe don't do this one is because I feel like I can get something better elsewhere across the league with Malcolm Brogdon as a trade chip. But, and Rudy Gay may as well just be a traffic cone as far as what he can do on the court for any team at this point in his career.
I don't know.
But Kelly O, he's held up nicely in his sort of post-Celtics career and had some great moments on a bunch of other teams. Can shoot. Is basically a giraffe on ice skates defensively, but can certainly give us some good looks off the bench there, particularly in the regular season and maybe the first round. So a little bit more hesitant on this one, but it's hard to say no to Kelly Olynyk. What do you think, Spoonie?
I'm sorry. Please don't hate me.
No.
I'm a firm no on this one. Malcolm Brogdon is so much better than Kelly Olynyk, guys. Come on. What are we doing?
But it's Kelly. Game 7. How can you turn your nose up at Game 7, Kelly? We're gonna get that every time.
Fair. I think regular season wise, like Kelly would be interesting on the offensive side of the ball, but he cannot play deep in the playoffs. Like he will get run off the court by good teams. Like, do you think what's he guarding Bam in the Eastern Conference Finals?
I don't know.
Come on, guys.
I don't know. Why not? And look, we need that third big. He play the 4, play the 5. You could play 5 out with Kelly and Al out there, and Tatum. You got like 3 7-footers pretty much. Yeah, look, I'm open to it. I would probably do it. I'd probably do it.
All right, what else we got?
All right, MJ's on the way out. He's fire sale here. We're gonna
what? Martin.
So this is purely to see if we can also conjure up black magic to see if we just try and get the other Martin. Maybe it will work. That's literally all this is, and then you save money. And he's like super cheap, and you get another second round pick.
So for those listening,
this year's draft.
Yeah, those listening to the pod later, that was Malcolm Brogdon for which twin is
Cody,
it?
Cody Martin.
Cody.
Yeah. Cody Martin. Next, what else we got?
No. Okay.
What about for
so
Cody Martin? Let's see if that accomplishes our goal.
Look,
how about that?
Sure. All right. Now this is a 3-teamer. The Celtics receive John Collins and a second round pick via Miami, and then the Hawks get Gary Harris and the Magic get Malcolm Brogdon because they're kind of looking for more guard play across that team, someone that can score in the backcourt because they have so many guys. This is like, can we be the John Collins reclamation project? Is John Collins actually bad, or is on the Celtics in a really good system, in a really good team, add a lot of athleticism, 6'9", bit of versatility? Can we save John Collins? There's a lot of money. I probably don't do it unless you get maybe some more value in drafts capital back, but it's interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, and there is some buzz, or at least there's clearly been some reported conversation on this one. So HP Basketball had this on Twitter that the Celtics had talked to Atlanta for the 800th time, admittedly, about John Collins. So at least there is some reporting going on about these conversations being had. This one I would have a long, hard think about, longer than I have to now react to this proposal here on this live podcast. But I think... What, Spoonie? You just go, Spoonie. Spoonie's got some thoughts.
You trade him for Kelly Olynyk, but not John Collins.
I know.
I like winning players, Spoonie. I like winning players.
Is John Collins a winning player? I don't think we really know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think I'd be willing to try and find out. We're going to move Brogdon, right? And so like this would probably be in the top 3 as far as like just usable, decent players that you could get back for Brogdon. For that reason, I'm having to think about it. And I think Collins has maybe 1 more year left on his contract after this at roughly 25 mil per year. So it's not like you're burying yourself too much in some sort of albatross contract. The risk is quite low. So we're getting called out for our Olynyk love here in the chat. Probably rightfully so. But I would have a good long hard think about this one. What do you think, Spoons?
Yeah, my questions are, I actually think Brogdon straight up for John Collins is a pretty fair and even trade. Orlando, I'm not sure why they want Brogdon. They just want like a veteran in the room. They're ready to win 40-something games, Jake. Is that your thinking?
Yeah, exactly. Like they've been kind of rumored that they needed another guy to pair with Fultz in the backcourt, like Suggs. Yeah. Okay. But a guy that, they can come in and be solid for those guys and actually score. That's been the issue with the Magic, is like just getting buckets at times. And so Brogsy gets buckets.
Feels like Orlando might need to send something else over to Atlanta. I don't know. I don't know what it is. It just feels a little light on the return for Atlanta. Well, Gary Harris is a good player, can make threes, can defend, but they've got plenty of assets.
I think with Collins, though, 3 years, $25 million apiece, they've been trying to trade him since they signed the contract. So that would be what I was thinking, is that contract just doesn't have value, so they don't really get anything back. It's like we get off Collins and we get Gary Harris, who we could flip again, because I guarantee there'd be teams willing to pull up. But I love this comment from Adam in the chat. Collins is a version of Aaron Gordon. I don't know.
Our version of Aaron Gordon.
I don't know.
A version.
But that's kind of a thing, right? It's like you need to have a look around the league and like who are guys in certain spots that maybe like with you, can you unlock them? And don't know. It's interesting. All right, we got one more. This is just Malcolm Brogdon for Batum and Covington, just 2 wily wing veterans. Robert Covington's not even that old still. I think I checked, he's like 34, and Batum is not that old either. He's 34 as well. Look, 34, man. That's the new 29 in the NBA.
It's a great salary dump, Jake, if we're trying to get off Brogdon's money.
Yeah, but in this like win now window before all the prohibitive constraints of the new CBA come in, that's going to be a no for me, dog. Sorry. What do you think, Spence?
It gives us a lot of flexibility. I think you can probably sign both these guys to lower value contracts after their current deals expire. Rocco has trouble staying healthy, which scares me, but he shot the hell out of the ball last year, which is good. I don't know. Is Batum still good? Like, is he still playing that role for the Clippers that he was like a year and two years ago? Is he still that guy? Because if so, like it's interesting for sure.
Batum last 3 seasons, 40%, 40%, 39%, all on above 4 attempts a game. He played 78 games in the most recent season at 22 minutes a game. And the Clippers were good. They were the 5th seed. And that was with Kawhi and Paul George missing literally like the whole season. Batum is still good. And you can play him at the 4 and the 3. I would do this. I would do this for sure.
I think you're selling me. Yeah.
Well, what I'm sold on is reducing the minutes load on the Jays through the regular season. And if that's the impact they can have, that's great. But that's still second to playoff utilization. I'll use that term again. And I just don't know what we can expect out of either of those guys, after the regular season. So that's where I'm hesitant.
Batum, the Clippers only played 5 games in the first round, but like Batum was playing 18 minutes a game, and they won. They won one of those games. Obviously, that was a lot to do with Kawhi. But like in the year previous, he played 19 playoff games, started 10 of them, played 30 minutes a game in the playoffs, shot 39% from 3. Like he's been really good for the Clippers, like since he's gotten there in both the playoffs and the regular season. I would be all about getting in. And then Groko doesn't need to stay healthy. He's just depth, and he can play just swing guy for this team. I would heartbeat do this one.
I just hope that whoever we get in exchange for Brogdon can hustle half as much as you did, Jake, to pull all these trades together and add them to our live stream here. That was amazing and a lot of fun to just sit back and have like trades wash over you. It's the ultimate gluttony.
What I think the big takeaway is that there should be trades out there. We have second round picks. $22 million from a contract perspective isn't too big. Like he was really good last year. Like he should have value. I think it's hard to gauge his value. I think is the reality.
It makes us enormous as a team too. Mm-hmm. Like and you could do some stuff with Rocco. He's played a little small ball 5 in his career too. So you can do a lot of interesting stuff. We probably need to go get a center somewhere else, but that's okay. We can do that with Grant or PP.
So which of these trades did you like the most then? Like you got Kelly O, Cody Martin, Dorian Finney-Smith, Larry Nance, Batum, Boucher.
It's Bojan. Bojan
one.
Yeah, Boggy. Okay. From Brogsy to Bugsy. I'm all about that trade.
Yeah, he's kind of like the elite version of the Clippers trade, I guess, right? Like he's the best version of those guys.
Yeah. I think I'm higher on John Collins than other people are. I feel like that team with having him play next to Capella just does not really play into his strengths. They just kind of have him sit in the corner. So if we were dedicated to getting him into like the handoff game and running pick and roll a little bit more with him while Horford's spacing out to the corner, like his defense scares me, but I would do the Collins one. I think that makes sense for the Celtics big time. Like just turn Brogdon into a supersized wing that can shoot as long as his hand isn't broken still. So give me Collins.
All right. Love it. I would do the Clippers one. I don't know why. I just completely talked myself into it. Yeah.
Well, either way, regardless of what happens, thank you, Jake, for putting all of that together. That was a lot of fun. And I think in doing so, we sort of touched on a lot of the rumors out there that we were going to get to next. So obviously we talked about John Collins. Have we talked about Ayton enough? Like there were some rumors that the Celtics were getting in on the conversation with regards to potentially acquiring DeAndre Ayton as part of what I guess would be a Brogdon-related trade. Thoughts, Spoonie, on this potentially happening, especially with all the other, trade prospects we've already discussed and potentially Beef Stew coming in? Is Ayton the guy that we really want to look at? And then how does that make Rob Williams feel, who probably at this point considers himself maybe the starting center of the Boston Celtics?
I'm a horrible, disgusting human being.
Oh no.
I would target DeAndre Ayton. I know it's stupid. I know. I just can't get that finals run out. He was awesome when they made that run to the finals and like 3rd star level good. And you're at a point where you've got Brogdon, you know exactly what he is. You know he's not going to give you any more than what he gave you this year. And frankly, I think there's some risk with Brogdon. His 2-point shooting, especially at the rim, fell off a cliff. So unless he shoots like 45% from 3 again, which I don't think he will, I'm getting booed in the chat. I don't know, man. Like Ayton's young. His contract is too expensive, but it's not like Brad Beal $50 million a year expensive. Like you can work around that. He plays a lot. He's ostensibly can be good on both sides of the ball. So I know I'm in the minority, but if you think you get his head straight, like he is so friggin' talented.
Yeah, you can't ignore that run. I think Bill Simmons after that run had him like as the starting center on Team USA.
Yeah.
Which, I wouldn't have him over Bam, but he was that good.
Yeah.
And like you could contrast him with Rob, and like they're quite inverse players. Like Rob's ceiling, chaotic motor engine, and then the health issues, whereas Ayton's like, I'll give you 70 games and play 30 minutes a night and be solid.
Yeah, 75% effort though.
Yeah, but this is the thing. So how do we know? Because like Brad's going to call Monty. I'm sure Brad knows Monty from his time coaching. Like, and what Monty's not going to say good things.
No,
that's for damn sure. But you start to read a lot of these reports, and like Monty doesn't sound like he was exactly trying to, work with a young player so much at the same time. And if you get that run version out of Ayton, which isn't crazy to think that that's possible. Like it wasn't just one series; it was a finals run. He's 24, and by the time, great call, Ben. I was about to say this, right? So he's just finished the 22-23 contract. He's got 3 years left. So by the time the Jalen contract even kicks in, it'll be 2 years left. Like the Tatum Supermax you will be able to trade the Ayton contract by the time that you're dealing with the Jays on Supermaxes anyway, because there will only be 2 years left on the Ayton contract. Like, and even if you look at the Nuggets series, it wasn't really like Ayton wasn't the reason they lost, but like it was like the rest of the depth. It just feels like you're always going to be wanting more from Ayton. And is he going to have issues with the touches? It feels like an unknown. So I don't know. So, what's the trade though?
Well, yeah, what's the trade? Obviously, it involves Malcolm Brogdon is a huge part of that, and then we've probably got to throw in Gallo and a few extra pieces as well. Yeah, Pritchard. So we're giving up. Man.
So wait, we're keeping Rob and Al?
I think so. I think Rob and Al are
sign me up.
Malleable. I don't see us getting rid of either Rob or Al to bring in Ayton, which, as I say it out loud, maybe sounds crazy, but I think like we want a lot of depth at that big man spot, and we don't. No offense to the Cornish game hand, but we don't want Luke Cornett to be part of that depth necessarily. Yeah, it's a tough one. But like, let me ask you this, Jake. Like, if I'm not saying that beef stew is readily available, but like, given the difference in their contracts, if you could choose between acquiring beef stew and his salary, or DeAndre Ayton having to give up a bunch of pieces to get him and his salary back, what choice are you making? Who are you going with?
I can't lie. I convinced myself a little bit on Ayton here. Or Spoody's convinced me, I should say. What is a Rob, Al, Ayton front court? Like, that just sounds like a disaster. I feel like you kind of have to move on from Rob if you bring in Ayton, don't you? Well, I don't know.
I mean,
in theory, yes.
You got to bake in the fact that Rob's going to miss a bunch of games. And if you have Ayton, who you know is going to start 75 games and play 30 minutes a night, you can be really cautious with Rob's minutes. And I think Al can play next to him in the regular season. And assuming you still have Grant Ayton is a perfect fit as a front court duo. And you can do more Tatum at the 4 with Ayton, which, he can kind of handle all the rim protection and rebounding if he's willing to try, which again, is the big issue with DeAndre Ayton. So I think maybe you move Rob for a guard or a guard and a wing or something, look over to the Clippers and see if they're interested in Rob for one of the wings you just brought up, Jake. Something like that. It makes Rob expendable, which I think you kind of have to get to the position where Rob is just a luxury, because we've seen, like, if you're relying on him this much, like, he's going to get hurt and it's going to be very sad.
I was not emotionally prepared for this part of the conversation. I was not ready. I didn't wake up this morning thinking about trading Robert Williams. But I mean, the more you guys talk about it in the context of receiving Ayton, yeah, it's potentially the case that Robert Williams would have to go. All right, moving on. Last bit of news here as far as rumors are concerned. So Kevin O'Connor reporting that the Celtics are looking to package pick 35 and Peyton Pritchard to move up in the draft. Do you guys think there's much substance to this? I feel like of all the rumors, this is potentially the most likely to happen because it's just the smallest, less amount of fireworks thing to happen and the simplest to make happen from Brad Stevens' perspective. So, Spoonie, is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? Do you hope it happens?
No, it is not going to happen, but I do think it'd be Brad hasn't taken a first-round pick in his entire tenure, so I'd be interested to see, because he must be willing to do that because there is someone very specific around that range that he wants, like the end of the first round, because I can't imagine you get up any higher than like 24, 25, right?
Wouldn't think so.
So, yeah, we just made Chris Forsberg cry. I'm sorry, Chris. Big fan of the pod. Big friend of the pod. I mean, I doubt he's a fan, but
it's all right.
Yeah, so I hope it happens because I think it would be fun.
Yeah, it would be classic Brad, right? Like, we're yet to see him do a non-single. I don't know. What would you call the Derek White trade? That's probably not a single. Giving away
double.
Yeah. Like, a double or a triple. That's definitely a single, though. Peyton Pritchard and if Brad likes the guy he's trading up for him, I'm all in. So yeah, and you got to package it somehow. You got to get Pritchard or Brogdon out of here. Maybe he's just exploring a little bit of everything. It's just so hard to keep all these rumors straight. Oh, James Nagy in the chat. Don't you worry. We got some thoughts.
I hope that's who it is. Yeah.
So we're running out of time. We're yet to get to the main portion of this podcast here in 15 minutes. So I'll let you guys choose between these last two news items. Jake, you can choose. So one of them is that Yam and Begarin, whose names I have forgotten to pronounce since last Summer League, are not going to be playing in this upcoming Celtics Summer League. That's one of them. The other is that Zion Williams is reported to be traded ahead of the NBA draft. Do you think that is likely to happen? And would you like the Celtics to explore opportunities there? So choose between those two. What's the most important to you? And then let's dive in.
It's definitely the Zion one. Oh, wow. That would be a big meeting. That would be a big meeting trading for Zion. I don't know. I think I'd probably do it though. Like what if is it like a Marcus Smart and stuff trade for Zion?
I assume Jaylen Brown, which I absolutely would not do in a million years. Zion terrifies me, dude. Like all this stuff with the
everything
that's like you're way overweight. That the scariest part to me on a basketball standpoint was like her being like, you're too overweight to play and you have no discipline. It's like, man, that is like bad news. Like, how many injuries does he have to suffer? How many shoes does he have to blow out before he's like, man, I should really start taking my job seriously? So Jalen's an absolute no, but if it's like Brogdon and Rob Williams,
that's what you gotta look at it.
Yeah.
But I just think they can probably get so much better from teams around the league than our scraps, basically. Not to discount how good Rob Williams is. I don't want to call him scraps, but you know what I mean. I think it's actually a short conversation from the Celtics perspective, as far as we're not going to give up what they would expect us to give up. Therefore, we're not doing it.
Well, I don't know. Bill Simmons on the pod seemed to indicate that the value of Zion is pretty low relative to what you would have thought in the middle of last year. So hard to say, but gee, man, that's like a potential top 5 guy. It's just hard to not talk yourself into that.
Well, speaking of talking ourselves into shit, we're going to get into our favorite prospects for the upcoming draft. For the 35th pick that we've just discussed, Brad is semi-likely to trade away. But we've gone through and we've read a whole bunch of different mock drafts. We've listened to all the podcasts. We've read all the Sam Vecini, all the Ringer stuff. We've done our research, and we're here ready to outlay a couple, maybe 2 to 3 prospects each. Jake, we'll start with you. Who you got?
All right. My favorite guy, Jamie Jacquez Jr. Billing him as the taller, sturdier D. White. He's 4 years at UCLA. I like looking at guys that have been in college for a while, played in big games in the tournament, can handle the ball a little bit, kind of create his own shot, has the little little floater game, little herky jerky floater game, kind of some questions about his shot a little bit, and a couple of questions about his athleticism. Dare I say, sounds slightly similar to Derek White. But yeah, I mean, I like this guy, but the part that I love is like winning plays, does a little bit of everything, and Sam Vecini described him as a hooper. So I'm like, yeah, bring in a guy that does everything, winner, hard-nosed dog. Yeah, bring him in.
Yeah, winning player, and might I say, cool looking dude. Can never have too many cool guys on the bench. So he's got my stamp of approval. Spoony,
looks like a 2K my player. You
Yeah.
get like the Fu Manchu, the headband, the long hair. He reminds me of Austin Reeves. Like he's just slippery with the handle, good size for his position. The shot I think will be he is going to be. I think he will be an NBA player no matter what, and how good he will be is really going to depend on the jump shot. But there's a lot to like, man. Yeah, I think he just knows how to play basketball. And I know that's like sounds reductive, but you know what I mean? Like he knows when to cut, when to set picks, when to drive. So I think there's a lot to like there. I think people will really like him, and I'd be surprised if he's there, but he's I think going to be a solid player.
Well, this is the thing that I've realized doing this, like depending on who you look at, like anything, like picks from like 20 to 50, like you got players all over the board. I don't know if that's this specific draft, but like on Vicini's board, he was 23rd, and on the Ringers board, he was 32nd. Some guys on Twitter I was looking at, I saw him at like 42. Like
that's the second round for you. Like it's all over the place.
Yeah, anything from after 20, right? Like 25, especially, it could be anywhere.
Who else we got, Jake?
Oh, you want me to do all three first? All right, cool.
Sure.
Well, I know someone was talking about this fella in the chat here, James Nagy, and we didn't pull, like he's got this Twitter video of him shirtless working out. I didn't pull that one just because I needed Ben to stay focused. Because I'm not sure Ben can handle the dimensions of James Nagy, but like
You know me too well.
Yeah, but like 6'11", like 7'6" wingspan, really athletic. He's the second youngest player in the draft. He kind of just reminds me of another version of Rob, right? Just like this freaky athletic dude, offensive rebounding. He's going to block a lot of shots. Definitely doesn't have like the passing and IQ and feel of Rob, but and the fact that he's a raw player makes me a little concerned. But you bring him in as the third big, and you just let that man go wild, and let the Celtics perimeter defense kind of do the job up front, and then let Nagy clean it all up at the back. But 18 years older, I think, right now. So I'm not sure if that fits on like the championship roster type of thing, but definitely an upside swing.
Yeah, so similar with the Brogdon trade proposals, one of the things that makes me wary of any prospect is their youth. So I wouldn't be necessarily looking at any freshmen because we're not looking for where the team's at any high upside prospects. We're looking at more like seniors, guys who can come in and contribute and play a role for the Celtics immediately. That said, like if a really, really high upside prospect does fall to you this deep in the draft, you have to at least, scratch your chin and consider drafting them. And I do have one freshman that I'll throw at you guys a little bit later. What do you think, Spoonie?
I feel like the bar to being a valuable or at least like role player when you're this absolutely enormous and athletic is pretty low. Like you just got to not be completely lost on defense and catch lobs. And it's like, all right, this dude can give us 10, 12 minutes a night. So I love it. I love him. I think he's a great prospect. You just cannot teach what he has. And he seems to like, I mean, from what I saw, my small amount of research, like he is a legit role guy. Like he gets up in the air and he dunks absolutely everything. So I'd be totally in on this. But like you, Ben, like I'm a little wary of the younger guys, but he is one I would make an exception for.
We'll have to get Cornet to teach Nagy the Cornet contest, but I think Nagy might just block it instead of having to do that. All right, my last one, and this one's been all over the place with the Celtics. is Kobe Brown. Kobe, I know that might give people a little bit of pause here, but this dude is 6'7", 7'1" wingspan, and again, like, can shoot, can pass, can dribble, really good cutter, like, can just do a little bit of everything. And again, the type of guy that is a four-year player, experienced, played in some big games, I think, and a skill that he has, like, he's like a Kevin Love type outlet passer. I was looking at like just a pure outlet passing video. And so he gets every rebound and he's just like looking up the court and lets it fly. And I think that would be a really valuable skill on the Celtics, where we have to like trick our team into running fast. This guy's like pinpoint touchdown accuracy, throwing the ball, landing beyond half court and getting guys into really advantageous positions out of transition, off of misses and off of makes. So Kobe Brown, I'd be like, he might be the top of my list here. But the Ringer had him at 48th. Fassini had him at 30th. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, skill-wise, and I'll say it, dimensions-wise, I think he fits in nicely with the Celtics, just as far as, like, let's go away from the Ainge style of drafting those undersized guards, and let's get some bigger guys with some athleticism who can at least slide in from a defensive standpoint almost immediately. Young athletic guys, semi-Ojale, but with a better hoops IQ is kind of what I'm looking at as far as filling in those gaps for the Celtics. A guy that we wanted to contribute a lot for the Celtics this year was Sam Hauser, but athletically and defensively, as far as what he can bring to the court in that sense, so obviously he's not bringing a lot to the table. So if we can fill in the gaps with prospects in that sense, Kobe Brown is someone who excites me to no end. What do you think, Spoons?
Good size, plays a valuable position, and can absolutely stroke it from three. He's strong. Like, if he can stay in front of people and the jump shot's real, like, he's going to have a role in the league. So I like this one a lot too. He's older, so, you got to think he's going to need less seasoning. Maybe he can contribute as a rookie. I would love it if Kobe Brown is around. Yeah. Like you guys, like, he's all over draft boards, like a crazy amount. Yeah. And I actually think Grant was pretty similar. I think KOC had Grant at like 14 or something like that on his board. So I'm surprised he's so low on Kobe Brown. But I'd be in.
All right.
Let me throw a couple at you guys, and I'll start with this dude, Tristan Vukcevic. I hope I'm saying that right. The 20-year-old 7-foot center out of Serbia. He's Swedish/Serbian. He plays for Partizan Belgrade of the Serbian League, the Adriatic League, and the Euro League at the moment. He's a great three-point shooter, shot 39% on 5 attempts in this most recent season. He's also got great touch around the rim. He's a really smooth player, particularly for his size. Floaters, mid-range jumpers, threes. He's all over draft boards as well, anywhere between 35 and 50. Does have some clear weaknesses. I think just looking at the guy as we run the clip here on YouTube, you could probably start to pick out what they might be. Very slow-footed, very poor defensively, as Charles Barkley might say, a little light in the ass, but skill-wise and height-wise, like, there's a lot of upside there. Obviously, he's a big guy that we can just stick, potentially in the middle of a zone. Also, he can pop out and shoot from pretty much anywhere. He's got crazy range. So if he's someone that you can get into the weight room, get some defensive tutelage around him, risky, very raw, but extremely high upside. And as we look at this influx of, international players with their international skill sets coming into the league, this might be leaning into that trend a little bit for the Celtics. And for that reason, I said he was all over draft boards. Some of those included undrafted. I think this is a guy that you might see people gambling on quite early in the second round. So someone to look at there. What do you guys think?
Yeah, look, hey man, we got to try and find the next Giannis, next Jokic, next Embiid. Obviously, Embiid went like third overall, but find the next, the next international. Also like Siakam, guy. The non-Americans, man, they're taking over the world. It's I would easily be in on this guy. A really like skilled big man, juice in the offense. Basically, the where was he from? Sorry,
Serbia/Sweden.
Mate, he'll be getting tutelage from Jokic. He's like the Serbian. I'm already in Serbian Kelly Olynyk with Good Good to go.
Spoonie, you had this guy, right? You wanted to do the.
I want to. Yeah. Here's why. If you can protect the rim and you can shoot threes, there's a very, very, very few number of players in the league that have that combination of skill set, and they are very, very valuable. So I don't know if he can protect the rim, but he's got half of the ingredients, right? We know he can absolutely stroke it. And just being 7 feet tall with a massive wingspan, you're going to protect the rim a little bit. So I feel like he's a really high bust potential, but the ceiling on this dude is absolutely insanity. Like, bigs that can shoot and handle the ball and just have a feel for the game like that do not come around all that often. So definitely worth a swing at 35.
Now, the other guy I've got is Jalen Slauson, a senior, 23 years old, out of Furman. He's 6'7". He's got a 7-foot wingspan. And the recap on this guy is that he's a really smart defender on ball and a really smart and clever off ball help defender as well. Averaged 1.5 steals, 1.5 blocks per game last year. Regularly defends 3 through 5. Is a really effective shot blocker and chase down blocker as well. In the most recent NCAA season, he ranked 42nd overall in defensive box plus minus across all 2023 draft eligible players. He also has playmaking chops for his position, and not necessarily off the dribble, but he's like a good standstill passer. He plays or passes well out of a horn set as well. Any sort of standstill passing action where you're looking for cutters and drivers and things like that. He's mocked at 35-ish, more consistently sort of mocked around that spot across all draft boards or mock boards rather. And the Celtics have worked him out too. So they've brought him in for a workout, which can be some indication that they might be looking at him more seriously. Weaknesses, shooting, again, like you've obviously got to concede some sort of skill set at this point in the draft, this deep in the draft. He only shot 32% from 3 in college overall, but he did get that up to 39% in his last year. It's also not the greatest ball handler as well, which might, cause some recent PTSD across Celtics fans, seeing poor ball handling being part of our downfall in the playoffs. Obviously, the onus is not going to be on a second-round draft pick to handle the ball much for the Celtics this season. So he's a high upside guy, but experienced, mature at 23 years old that I think the Celtics should be looking at that spot. Any thoughts?
Look, I like it. I like just choosing these guys that are long, big, can kind of play that swingman role and are experienced and can do a little bit of everything. We just need guys that are able to fill the gaps for this team and do it now. So I like that pick a lot.
Yeah, I mean, look, if he can defend and he's that size, like, you can carve out a role. And if the shot comes, all of a sudden you're looking at a 3-and-D wing on an absurdly cheap contract while your 2 best players hit their super maxes. So these are that's like the exact prototype of the type of guy I'd be looking at, like these bigger wings that can hopefully shoot.
Yeah. And so along those lines, Julian Phillips out of Tennessee, he is a freshman. He's only 18 or 19 years old, but feels that same player archetype, the athletic defensive wing, 6'7", very similar to Jalen Slauson, but an even worse shooter. I'd be going Slauson over Phillips just because of that age and experience and maturity factor. But Julian Phillips, I think the Ringer had him going to the Celtics in their mock draft. So clearly that's the archetype that we want to be looking at. That's all I got. Spoonie, onto your prospects.
All right, my first guy, the only freshman I have, he's a little older for freshman, 19, but Jordan Walsh of Arkansas. So this dude, he is 6'6" with a 7'2" wingspan, and he is just a monster athlete. He's going to be one of those guys that like plays much bigger than his actual listed size. He flies around. He's got like some Eason from LSU last year who went to Houston.
Yeah, I love that.
That's what he's got in his game where he can. But my problem with him is he's pretty raw on the offensive end. Like, his jump shot looks good up high, but his feet are totally all over the place. He only shot like 28% from 3, as you see him absolutely clang a free throw.
I was going to say, you need to include that in the highlight.
This is not a
Ben
highlight.
made my guys low lights for some reason.
Sorry about that.
But he's a little raw defensively, but his tools are absolutely ridiculous. He gets a lot of like trailing block shots. And he just seems like he's raw. So he's probably not going to contribute next year, but if he figures it out, man, he could kind of have the total package.
For sure.
I'm jaded
All
now.
right.
All I've seen now is him breaking free throws and not getting rebounds. Ben really threw you under the bus on that one.
Yeah. I can add some context there. So obviously we had to cut the clip short here on YouTube, but that clip, the context there is he started a game poorly and how he turned that game around. So if you watch that again on YouTube, then you'll see him how mature he is in his approach, that if he gets off to a slow start, he can at least turn it around. So definitely a high upside player. So it definitely fits the same archetype that we're really looking at here. We're starting to notice a bit of a theme here. So really any of these guys, including Jordan Walsh, if we can get in a big body there who can play at the 3, the 4, maybe slide to the 2 at times, those are the sort of guys that we're looking at. Any thoughts on Jordan Walsh, Jake, before we move on?
Hey, 6'6" with 7'2" wingspan has my attention.
And he's an absurd athlete.
Yeah, right. And
great dimensions.
It's the dimensions, baby. It's just at this range, it's like, yeah, the other guy, he's got this and this, but we have questions about his shooting. You have questions about guys like after the third, like really after the first pick in the draft, right? So guys at this range are going to have some like pretty serious flaws. You just have to hope that once they get into the NBA, they have their work ethic. They just like more or less figure out their weaknesses and their strengths overpower whatever weaknesses they do have, to the point where they're able to find like a 8th man role. Like very rarely, we're not expecting to find a Draymond Green or a Chris Middleton. Granted, how sick would it be if we are the team that hits like on the next, like Draymond, Chris Middleton, Siakam, like whatever it is, and like, because that completely changes your calculus as a team. Is like all of a sudden you've just drafted a top 20 player who's making $2 million a year, and then you just don't do what the Mavericks did and actually sign him to the $55 million deal like Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, 35, not a first round pick, but I'm excited to see what Brad does, drafting this high up, really top 40 for the first time in his NBA PoBO career. All right, Spoonie, we've got 2 more. What do you got?
Trace Jackson Davis. He's a senior out of Indiana. He's sort of an undersized center at 6'8", but 7'1" wingspan. He led the team in points, rebounds, blocks, and he averaged 4 assists a game, which I think is kind of an interesting thing you don't see a lot from a center. But he's a really incredible vertical athlete, like sort of a stay in front of you defender, but not like a monster rim protector or anything like that. But he's got really good, just like ball handling in sort of like the handoff game. And then he can roll hard to the rim. Like he's really polished on the offensive end. He got a lot of his points in the post, which he's just not going to do. And I think a lot of his assists were like, he just draws a double in the post and then kicks it to an open shooter. So I don't anticipate all of that sort of passing to really translate, but he seems like he can just kind of run, jump big, who, is secure with the ball, knows where to pass the ball, can dribble a little bit. And I'd be interested to see, like, adding, Jake, you've been talking about us adding that handoff game. And I think he could potentially do that. I do worry about his rim protection a little bit, though.
Oh man, that guy can
get up.
Definitely the sickest highlight reel we've played.
Yeah, I was just like, and he looked like he's doing those fake handoffs, and so that he might be my favorite of all these so far. Nice, Spence.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm well out of my depth here as far as like assessing more than a few prospects, which I spent last night doing at this level of the draft. That said, like, that guy looked like the most dynamic athlete that we've looked at so far in this podcast. I think that's all I'm qualified to add. Should we move on?
Yeah, well, I think this is a good point by Godzilla. It's just like, just don't put too much expectations on these like 22-year-old kids that we draft to help us win a title. It would be a completely massive outlier. Even the Siakams, like as Godzilla said, takes him a little while to turn into these types of players, which is still huge. Like if we can get that player, as the Supermaxes do kick in and we're looking for ways to fill out the roster cheaply, would still be huge.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. So my last guy is basically the opposite of a lot of the prospects we've been talking about. He is a can only shoot. Hopefully he can do other stuff at the NBA level. It's Ben Shepherd from Belmont, a senior, 22 years old, 6'5" with a 6'8" wingspan. So like the measurables are not great, but the jump shot is pure. and it is absolutely pretty. But you can see here, right? He's driving against Furman and he's having trouble getting all the way to the rim. Like, he finished that, but I just do not have a lot of faith that he'll be able to like get to the rim. But the jumper is complete butter. Shot 42% just about on 6 attempts a game. So he's right in our range. I've seen him mocked high 30s, low 30s. So, I mean, he might be available, but you're just hoping he can make threes and doesn't get killed on defense. So pretty low ceiling, but I think a high floor prospect.
Yeah.
Well, just the shooting, I think that's a skill that we need more of, particularly if they're quite quick-footed and can navigate around screens defensively as well. Like if they have like a 1B skill that they can bring to the table along with that shooting. I do have like Neesmith-related PTSD where like the shooting just doesn't convert to the NBA. Like at least with the athleticism, like you're going to be big and strong and quick no matter where you are. Whereas the shooting, for whatever reason, just because of the intensity and the quickness of the NBA game, doesn't always translate. That said, he is mocked higher or lower, I guess, in the draft than a lot of these other guys that we're looking at. So if he's one guy that could fall to us, then I think it's someone that we probably need to consider jumping on. What do you think, Jake?
Do we already have this guy on the roster in Hauser?
So the difference is he gets his jumper off in a lot more different ways. Like he will run off screens hard, and he's really good pump faking and then dribbling into a pull up, which is something I actually just wrote about how I want Hauser to add that to his game. Like he's really money when he has to take like a one dribble pull up three. And so I think he's a little more deadly as like a stretch threat because of that compared to Hauser. But yeah, I mean, you know, there's definitely some similarities there. I'm not going to lie to you.
Not the worst thing in the world.
No.
Yeah.
All right. Look, we've got to wrap this up. We've had a lot of fun talking about all the things that might happen heading into what hopefully will be a very spicy draft day for the league and for Celtics and their fans. But we do have to wrap this one up. Lots of potential Brogdon trades to ruminate on now that this podcast is over. Lots of spicy potential second-round picks that Brad can take a look at, shake a stick at, etc. That is going to do it for this one. In the meantime, a reminder that we will be live streaming the draft on YouTube. Subscribe at youtube.com/@first-to-the-floor. We'll have some of the broadcast up on the screen, the maximum amount that we can manage without being banned by YouTube. We'll have a live tweet stream up on screen for all the best newsbreakers, a dynamically updated draft board, and maybe it's the only place where you can get a live reaction on how every single thing that happens affects the Celtics. In the meantime... Thanks for tuning into this one. Spoonie, Jake, love your work. See you guys on draft day. Until then, go Celtics.